Hey guys, this is Evan and welcome to the Cartoon Block. I had a chance to sit down and interview a good friend of mine, Chance Raspberry, character layout artist on The Simpsons. He's also done work on Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends and Family Guy. And he's also going to give you guys tips on how you can break in the animation business. When did you start drawing?
Well, probably about 3 or 4. And about that time, I kind of got this whole realization that there are these really cool things called pencils. Some of my actual favorites as a child were from that whole golden age period. I had Max Fleischer, also, you know, the Bob Clampett, Chuck Jones, Looney Tunes. Yeah, all the classics really. So those golden age artists were my first and biggest inspiration. And then of course as I got older, you know, I learned more about Walt Disney, and I always remember thinking, you know, these look so cool, I want to do that. About the time I was 8 years old, you know, 1989, The Simpsons was making its, you know, boom on Tracy Ullman.
Yeah.
And my mom calls me into the room one night and she goes, you know, Chance, come take a look at this funny new little cartoon show that's on TV. And that was my first experience with The Simpsons, and I remember thinking like, I could totally get into this, but it was, I'm pretty sure it was something with Bart, and I immediately identified, you know, I was a kid, he was a kid. I realized, wow, somebody actually makes their living doing a cartoon show like this. That was my first concept of people make money doing cartoons. My cousin just randomly happened to send my parents a letter saying, you know, we saw this in the newspaper, and it was an article for Cal Arts' summer school program, and they had this for animation. So, you know, after at least one rejection, I got in. So I bounced around a lot in college. I went to Pierce College for 3 years, because while I was there doing that, a buddy of mine, who ironically enough at the time worked for The Simpsons, calls me out of the blue and goes, hey man, do you still draw? Well, guess where I'm working now? You should come take a tour of the studio. Bring your portfolio. Let me take a look at your stuff. So I'm going over to his place, meeting up at the studio. He shows me around, introduced me to a couple people, and he takes one look at my work and he slaps down a brochure in front of me, and it's for the Animation Academy in Burbank, California. I went on to take every class they offered at the academy, and made actually a lot of great contacts because people there were working in the industry. The teachers and the staff were also, you know, designers at Disney, storyboard artists for Sony, you know, background artists for Warner Brothers. During my stay at the school, they had an internship program. And what was great is, you know, again, you know, the Lord works in mysterious ways. I get to CSUN, and immediately, like my first week there, 2 students from the Animation Academy come up to me. They're like, hey dude, we know you from Charles's class. I don't know if we've ever actually met. I'm Steven, I'm Hadley. And they actually introduced me to the idea of like, hey, you know, we're interns over at Film Rome. And I'm like, why does that sound so familiar? Turns out that's the studio that produces The Simpsons for Fox, and that's where I had gone years earlier, where my buddy introduced me to the academy. And so I went to the studio with Stephen Hadley, and they introduced me to Shelly McCulley, who's in charge of, you know, HR and recruiting new interns. And about 2 weeks after that first meeting with Shelly, she calls me up one morning and goes, hey, we could actually use another intern up on our 3rd floor. It's not Simpsons, but it's another art production. It's Stan Lee for Marvel Comics. I'm like, dude, love it. So I went there, started interning, and I was an intern at Film Roman for that 1.5 years while I was finishing school and, you know, really getting everything tied down. They just happened to really need some fresh blood, and that was me. And I'm like the kid still looking around like, oh man, wow, the industry, like, oh, are those free donuts? You guys get sodas? Like, all this stuff. And, you know, it was great. And so the Golden Gate just sort of, like, happened to be open, and, you know, like, Thank you, God. I got in there before it shut. I was hired originally as a character layout artist on the Simpsons series. And what that job entailed was taking the storyboard, the script, and an audio cassette, believe it or not, of the voice dialogue, which had been pre-recorded. And we actually started the animation for Korea.
Here's the process. We start with a storyboard, then revise that, and I draw the layout. We shoot the poses from the layout for Animatic, then finally ship that overseas to Korea and they send back finished animation.
So a character layout artist really needs to know so many things and juggle them. You've got perspective, you've got proportion, you've got composition, framing, staging, the character expressions, the acting, the posing, the movement, the timing. And it's really all just lumped together in a very concise, organized way, you know, that you have to keep track of. If someone wants to actually get hired as a character layout artist, what they need to be drawing now to prepare would be, first of all, make sure you've got your perspective and your compositional skills up to par. So, you know, 1 point, 2 point, and even 3 point perspective are great training exercises. And on top of those things I've mentioned, perspective, composition, fielding, you have to know animation, squash and stretch, your basic fundamentals of animation, and good acting as a layout artist. And you're juggling all of these things, which is why it's a complicated position, and they make it worth your while, man. You know, it pays, but you definitely get drilled. For younger artists that are trying to break into the industry or that hope to take their skills further, the best thing I could recommend, or the best piece of advice I could give, would be to, first of all, draw what you love. Because the more fun you have doing it, the more you'll do it and the better you'll get. Practice makes perfect, right? The second thing I would have to say is, really, if you're interested in educating yourself, which you should be if you're thinking of going pro, you have to get a foundational education. Any good art school will train you in the basic fundamentals of drawing. And by that I mean, you know, just how to draw from life. Be taking, you know, classes on how to draw people, how to draw animals, maybe still lifes or landscaping. And that's what I would recommend, because personally, like, I know I've been there and I probably struggled with this as much, if not more, than the average artist. All of that stuff was boring to me. I personally felt like, well, what am I going to need to know that for? I just want to make cartoons. What I didn't realize at the time is that all the cartoons you ever see, at least the ones you remember, the ones that are really good, and probably even the bad ones, are based in reality. They learn how to draw from life first, and then they took what they knew, they took the rules and they bent them. You gotta know the rules before you can break in any of them.
So tell us, what are you working on now?
Well, one of my goals has always been throughout this whole career to someday have my own studio and make my own cartoons. So that's what I'm working on doing right now myself, is getting my own cartoons out there. I've got about 5 different properties, one of which I've been developing for about 10 years. I've just released a line of coffee mugs based on the main characters of this decade-long property. The studio is called Raz McKay. You know, I'm Raz, my partner's McKay, Raspberry McKendall, and we're just, you know, making stuff happen right now. So 2010 is going to be a big year.
Hey guys, to see more of Chance and his artwork, visit his website and check out his YouTube page.
Hey guys, I almost forgot. If you have a favorite artist that you want to see interviewed here on the Cartoon Block, leave the name in the comments below.
See you next time. Peace.